I finished the main story of Jedi Survivor as well as a lot of the side content, and damn, what a roller coaster ride it was. I'm not going to spoil any story details in this review and will only show gameplay from the first half of the game, but after playing its opening level on Coruscant, I think you'll already understand what I mean. The pacing is great throughout the entire game, with some truly amazing set piece levels as well as some intimate and quiet moments to help you catch your breath, and it also creates room to develop the characters further. There are a lot of new additions to the cast, and especially in the villain department, I am very happy with the new faces in Jedi Survivor. Much like Trilla in Fallen Order, they all feel like people, none of this evil because I'm evil stuff. Instead, you get characters who believe they are doing the right thing and refuse to let go of their beliefs, making the confrontation and eventual boss fight with them much more meaningful, as it's not just about who kills who first. And of course, as the trailer already suggests, the full Mantis crew from the first game is back, but I will let you meet them again yourself, as I don't want to give away too much. I will say though, to no one's surprise, Merrin absolutely steals the show. Not just in the cutscenes, as there's of course also the fact that she can now team up with you and help you out in combat. And while this character in gameplay system, as Respawn call it internally, is not super fleshed out, I do still appreciate the addition. When traveling with a companion, you can order them to perform a special attack, so for instance, Bode will dropkick someone and drop a shock grenade, whereas Merrin locks a target in place with Night Sister magic. These are useful moves, especially Merrin locking a boss down can do wonders, but since they're only available during certain sections, you quickly learn not to rely on them too much. Apart from that, your companion kicks ass on their own during combat and can sometimes help you during platform puzzles by reaching a spot you can't, but it's not much more than that. Still though, I did appreciate the variety of fighting together with someone as well as the conversations you have while traversing a level. I also feel like this is kind of Respawn testing the waters in this game so they can then go all out in a future installment. And looking at the improvements made between Fallen Order and Survivor, that has me very hopeful. It is truly astounding how much of a step up this game is compared to the previous one. And not just because it's much more cinematic, or because it looks better, or because the scale is larger, but also because of the growth of our playable character Cal. Of course, he's in a different place mentally, he's no longer scared and on the run, but much more confident in his abilities and convictions. But you also see and feel this growth as you play. Whether you're climbing, jumping, or dashing through the air, Cal is much more athletic this time around, and he moves like a trained athlete too. Which is going to come in handy because the level of the platforming sections has been raised significantly. You'll need to combine wall runs and air dashes with your grappling hook to make it through these, and even later in the game, platforming is being kept fresh by the introduction of moving platforms or deployable grapple points. This was not an element of gameplay I was expecting to enjoy, but I ended up really liking it. Can't say the same for puzzles, as I found these to be a bit hit or miss, but there are not that many of them on the critical path, and you can always ask the game for a hint if you are stuck. Yes, take note, you need to ask for hints before you get any assistance with a puzzle, unlike other titles from recent memory. And by the way, if you have any questions about the game so far after watching the review, let us know in the comments and we'll try our best to answer as many as we can. A like on the video would of course also be appreciated, and subscribe as we got way more spoiler-free tips and tricks for the game coming your way. Now, it's not just traversal that displays Cal's newfound confidence, it also really shows in combat. Again, it's already visible from just watching the way he moves. Little things like way flashier finishing moves or the flourishes he does when stowing his weapons show you that this man knows what he's doing. And while there are definitely some enemies that will make you question that confidence, most of the time you'll feel like an absolute badass. You can of course make that easier or harder by changing the difficulty to increase or decrease things like parry timing and incoming damage, but regardless of your difficulty, the game really sells you on the idea of Cal as this one-man army who's been causing a lot of trouble for the Empire. What already helps is the fact that pretty much your entire moveset from the previous game is intact. In fact, during the opening mission on Coruscant, you already unlock a new traversal ability and a new lightsaber stance, so after about an hour of play, you already have more options than you had in the previous game. And while not all of them are as exciting as a new lightsaber variant or a grappling hook, you keep unlocking new abilities at a decent pace during your playthrough. You also have a ton of new skills to unlock, and while I focused on getting the most out of the new crossguard and blaster saber stances, there is a lot you can do to spice up your force powers too. The game never forces you to use a single tactic to counter a specific enemy either, so there is a lot of freedom to choose your own style of combat. You can even respec your skills now, so if you completely want to swap out your skill set and try something new, that's an option too. And all of these new powers and lightsaber attacks feel very satisfying and varied. You of course still have the familiar single and dual bladed sabers that have some new moves, but mostly fill the same role as they did in Fallen Fallen Order, with one being an all-rounder and one better for dealing with groups. The real variety starts when you add the 3 new stances: the lightning quick dual blades, the heavy crossguard saber, and the unorthodox blaster stance. I spent most of my time with the crossguard saber, which feels like the lightsaber equivalent of a two-handed claymore. It hits like a truck, but your moves are slow, so you need to be very deliberate about when to attack. The blaster stance, on the other hand, almost has a space pirate flair to it, with some fast stabs and even some offhand punches thrown into your combos. Of course, the main thing is that you have a blaster in your offhand to take down enemies from range, but because you refill ammo by hitting enemies with melee attacks, you'll still be using your saber a lot too. I think it's definitely the most unique out of the new playstyles, and it also has my new favorite move, the point blank shot, where you counter an enemy with a blaster shot just before they attack you. But yeah, with 5 different combat styles to try out, each with their own skill trees, and then returning and new force powers on top, there is a lot of variety in what you can do. And while I ultimately love the blaster the most, it is really cool to use the new force confusion to turn an enemy into an ally and have a flame trooper barbecue their buddies. On the note of enemies, there is a pretty big variety of them to test your skills with the lightsaber, although ultimately you will see certain enemy types show up very often. Obviously, stormtroopers in their various combat loadouts are one of your biggest enemies, as are the new Bedlam Raiders with their repurposed battle droid army. But those 2 factions are the ones you will be fighting for most of the main story, with some dangerous alien wildlife thrown into the mix depending on your location. Both the Empire and the Raiders receive new enemy types every so often, including some absolutely terrifying late game additions like the DT Sentry droids, so it's not like you are literally fighting the same enemy from start to end. But still, I do think that an extra alien creature here or a new elite stormtrooper there would have made the game even better. Now, I've been very positive so far, and I do feel very confident in recommending this game to others, but that is not to say it's without its problems. Performance has been a major one, at least on PlayStation 5, which is what I played on. You can choose between quality mode, which is 4K at 30 FPS locked, or performance mode, which targets 60 frames per second at a lower resolution. I played the entire game on performance mode, and while in most indoor areas it at least feels like you're running at a solid 60 frames, busy fights or larger outdoor spaces can take the frame rate down. Which is not a deal breaker, at least not for me, but I do wish this problem was absent in some cutscenes, as lightsaber fights lose some of their impact because the frame rate takes a nosedive. That's not the only issue though, as there is texture popping in the more open sections and bugs like disappearing enemies or Cal getting stuck under the ground. I did not experience these often, but I did want to mention that there are some technical issues here. A Day Zero patch just launched that should tackle a lot of these issues, but since downloading it would mean me putting my save file at risk, I was not able to properly test it in time for the review. That is only for people like me who played before release. You should not have this issue when you start playing, and we will update the pinned comment with our experience after playing the updated version. But even without the patch, there was nothing really getting in the way of my enjoyment, just a couple of rough edges that I hope get fixed in the future. It does help that the locations you will visit all look beautiful, and they're very varied too. Again, the opening level in Coruscant is a standout, but Kobo has a lot of variety as well, with a murky swamp, a volcanic region with abandoned temples, and a mountaintop observatory. Next to Kobo, there's another more sand-covered planet that also gives room for survivors' new open-ended exploration, and then 3 more traditional levels that are comparable to Fallen Order. Now, that might not sound like much of an improvement over the previous title, but honestly, Kobo feels like it's 3 or 4 planets in one, with you also gaining access to new areas as you progress throughout the story. Plus, it saves you the trouble of planet hopping with the Mantis all the time, so I honestly prefer things this way. Navigating these larger planets can still be a bit of a pain though, as the map has certainly been improved, but it's still hard to navigate. Fast travel does really help out with this, as this means you'll spend less time retracing your steps, and there are some really useful indicators that show you paths you haven't checked, and even areas that are currently locked, so you know you need to come back to them with a different upgrade in order to access their secrets. And while there is definitely a lot to find on Kobo and the other planets you'll visit, not all of it is equally as exciting. Things like skill points or health and force upgrades are of course always nice, as are new pieces of clothing for Cal. But a lot of your unlocks are still new color schemes for your saber or BD, or very subtle cosmetic items like lightsaber parts. Which makes finding new chests not as exciting as I would have liked it to be, as there is a high chance you find something that's just not that impactful. The new perk system kind of falls into the middle, as there are some pretty nice ones, like ones that give you bonus XP, but you can pretty much ignore the whole system and still do fine in combat if you don't want to go looking for them. So while exploration is always always fun, the rewards you get from it are not always super exciting. I will say though, while Jedi Survivor lacks traditional side quests, there are some bigger pieces of side content that are very well done. I found a mysterious temple in the desert that had me look for 3 challenges to open it up and retrieve an awesome reward. And the bounty hunter system has been overhauled completely. You are the hunter this time, and you'll retrieve the location of your next target from the saloon on Kobo. Each defeated hunter gives you a bounty puck you can trade for some pretty cool rewards, including new shots for your blaster. The high-ranking hunters will often bring friends with them, meaning going after them puts you through some very tough combat gauntlets. And I even found a secret boss hiding a very powerful unlock after going back to Coruscant very late in my playthrough. So while there are definitely some amazing unlocks to find, it feels like these are in the minority. Don't get me wrong though, it is definitely a huge step up when compared to Fallen Order. But yeah, while some people might have wanted more from the increased focus on exploration and customization, I absolutely love my time with the game so far and can't wait to play more. The game launches with New Game Plus already, so you can immediately jump in for a second playthrough with some extra rewards and modifiers if, like me, you can't get enough. My first playthrough took me about 15 hours, but that was with little to no exploration and on the Jedi Knight difficulty. I can easily see a first playthrough taking 25 to 30 hours before reaching the end of the story if you do take your time though. So Jedi Survivor offers a lot of bang for your buck. A great story, huge improvements to an already solid combat system, a lot of variety in how you can play, and some fun Metroidvania style exploration as well. So as a fan of third-person action games, this is pretty much a no-brainer. But the biggest takeaway for me is that this is one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars media next to Andor in a very long time. It has the heart and charm of the original trilogy, the darker tones and epic lightsaber battles from the prequels, and a cast of characters that you can't help but cheer, laugh and cry for. If you are at all interested in this universe, I highly recommend you give Jedi Survivor a try, as I don't think you'll regret it. And if you do decide to jump into the game, we'll be making a ton of spoiler-free tips and tricks videos on the channel. So subscribe to not miss those, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and if one of those tips videos is already up, you can watch it by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one, goodbye.